Hey guys, what's up, Card Hockey here, and today I'm here with another Card Vanguard deck profile. This time I'll be doing a deck profile on the Silver Thorn deck from the new VBT09. The cards that we got, it helped strengthen the deck a lot, but if you ask me, it's not really quite up on par with the top tier decks yet. The deck is pretty decent, it's pretty solid, and the consistency is pretty good, but compared to some of the newer stuff, I think it's still lacking a little bit. But we'll talk about that later. Let's just do the deck list first. So for Starting Vanguard, we're running the Silver Thorn Starting Vanguard. I haven't picked up my errated version yet, so that will be updated once I pick it up, but you can just use that for now. So for the grade 3s, we are running Silver Thorn Dragon Empress Luquier. So she is the new grade 3 that we got, and basically she helps you hit for bigger numbers, and it helps you fill out your front row, which helps with her first skill. So overall, she's pretty good. Counterblast 1 and discarding 1 is definitely a lot better than the previous Counterblast 2 from the old Luquier. So this is obviously the main ride you want to go into. And she doesn't really do anything in the rearguard circle, so most of the time if you do draw another extra copies of her, you're going to re-ride so you can get those extra XL markers. Next, we are running 4 copies of the Silver Dragon Tamer Luquier. This card is here as a beater. So she's a 22k beater, but you can cut her down to 3 if you want. But I think running 4 just helps me get her into the soul faster, because you mostly want to use this as your beater, because being a 22k helps you hit magic numbers against other XL or Protect decks. And that kind of helps. And of course, if you have this on the field, then it'll be hitting for 27. So that's an extra increment of a magic number. So next we're running 1 copy of Dorian. This card is mainly here to help you draw in case you need it on the turn you couldn't finish your opponent off and you're low on hand cards. 1 copy of that. So 9 grade 3s might be a little bit much for some people, but most of the time you'll be filtering these into your soul, so it doesn't really matter that much. But I totally understand if you guys want to cut this down to 8. So next we're going to be running 4 copies of Lillian. She's a 19k beater, and she can also help you search for stuff to put into soul when you call her or ride her. So she's very, very good overall as a utility card as well as a beater. You're not going to use this card all the time, but if you really do need it, you can use it to put in a Dorian so that you can set up for your other plays. So it's definitely not bad. Next we are running 4 copies of Selbia. Selbia is here to call out more cards from your soul. So if you are doing if you're trying to do a grade 2 rush, you can with this. Counterblast 1, and then you just call 2 cards out from your soul, so you can use them as extra attackers or boosters. Yeah, she's overall pretty good. If you call her out with your Silver Thorn Dragon Luquier, then you can use this and combo it to call 2 more cards in the back row as a booster, so you're not really committing any cards from your hand, which is very, very nice. So yeah, she's very bad, but in that case you'll be using 2 counterblasts, so please keep that in mind. Next we are running 3 Rising Dragons. So the Rising Dragon is just here as a 19k beater. He turns to 24k if you are in Venus Luquier, so that's pretty decent. It's hitting your 1k above a magic number for Force Clans, so that's kind of nice. For grade 1s, we're running 4 copies of Irina. So Irina is here as your main grade 1 ride, and if you call it from hand, you can also do some stuff with it. So overall, it's pretty decent. You can help filter out some cards from your deck into your soul if you want to build a stack of cards on the bottom of your deck, so that you can do the Tsukiyomi play. It's a little bit harder for this deck, but you can kind of do it, especially if you spam your Ramis. So next we are running 4 copies of Rami. So Rami is the main filterer for your deck. So if you put her to rest and put her into soul, then you can look at the top 3 cards of your deck and put the Silver Thorn you can put as many Silver Thorns from those 3 into your soul as possible, or as you want, and then you can put the rest at the bottom of the deck. So she helps you filter out a lot of cards and helps you build a stack in the bottom. It is a -1, but if you're calling her out with cards like Venus Luquier or Sylvia, that's okay. And yeah, you mainly want to use her when you don't have enough cards in your soul, and then you can use it as a booster if you need it. So she's pretty good. Yeah, mainly just here to filter out, to thin your deck out of Silver Thorn cards so that you can build a stack and compress your deck. Next, we're running 2 copies of Breathing Dragon. Breathing Dragon is here as more of a option as a tech. If you have extra counterblasts on your turn, for example, if you healed or something, you can use this to do extra attacks with Sylvia. But keep in that mind, on the turn that you do that, you'll be using around 3 counterblasts. So that's pretty heavy. Not always the most optimal option, especially if your opponent hit a damage trigger. But sometimes if your opponent does have very low hand cards and they're at 5 damage, that might be the play that you want to do. So yeah. Next, for the last great one, we are running the new Linnea. I think that's what we call her. She is a 13k attacker or a 13k booster. So she hits magic numbers against Force Clans. It's pretty okay. She also helps you soul charge. Yeah, so she helps you get some soul early on in the game, which is pretty good sometimes. You might soul charge a trigger, which is not very good, but that's okay. She's a pretty solid card overall. And we're only running 3 copies because most of the time you want her to be a booster. Early game, you can use her as an attacker, that's also fine too. So if you really want, you can cut off a copy of Luquier in order to run an extra copy of Linnea, so that you can do your rush plays a bit easier. But yeah, that's my great one lineup. So for the triggers, we are just running 8 crits, 4 draws, and 4 heals. So we're running the PG draws. You can run 2 extra draws if you want, because this deck does require to discard if you are using your Luquier skill. But I think it's fine. I think 8 crit is working pretty well for me so far. The crits in the early game help you push your opponent to a higher damage, so that you can potentially finish your opponent off by the first or second grade 3 ride. So on to the pros and cons of the deck. The pro is you don't really need to set up as compared to the Harry deck. Let's compare to the Harry deck. So this deck requires less setup for your plays. Like, since there's so many different Silver Thorn names, you can just put whatever Silver Thorns you need in the soul, and then you can just call them out later. Whereas for Harry, it's kind of specific. There's only 4 Magia dolls out so far, so you need those specific 4 cards in your soul in order to do it. And the good thing about this deck is that you can put your cards in the soul back in the deck, so you can call them out, call them back out at your next turn, which helps against decks like Mega Colony, which will be coming out later. But I guess if you're talking about Mega Colony counters, Grand Blue is probably better. But I think this is pretty good too. And this deck is very, very good at rushing your opponent early game, especially if you did manage to ride your Irinas or use your Romies. Then you'll be able to get a lot of cards in your soul, and then if you call or ride Sylvia, then you'll be able to call your extra 2 cards out and proceed attacking your opponent with pretty decent numbers. If you also have Rising Dragon, you'll be swinging for 19k, assuming that you called her out with Sylvia, so that you can get 2 cards out, which fulfills the condition of Rising Dragon. Or if you have 4 unique name cards, then you can also attack with Leon. that has happened in my games before. So yeah, that does really depend on you, what you ride for Grade 1. If you ride Arena, your life will be a lot easier by the end. Because if you ride your Grade 2 on top, then you can lock the top 3. And since this deck is fully Silver Thorns, you'll be able to pretty much put everything except for triggers into your soul. Which is one of the reasons why I'm not running Masquerade Bunny. I think Masquerade Bunny kind of hinders the deck a bit. And we're running so many Grade 3s already, so it's not really a problem. If you're right first, riding into Luquier isn't the worst thing in the world. If you correct your ride afterwards, then you can just think you got extra XL markers. Obviously, riding into this is not as good because her skill requires more counterblast. But if you have Sylvia in your hand, you can just play it from hand instead, and then just do a suboptimal turn that turn. So obviously you do want to ride into Venus first, but again, riding into either Dorian or Luquier is not the worst thing in the world. The cons for this deck is it can attack a lot, but it's a little bit slow if you are relying on your XL markers. Obviously the Grade 2 game is pretty strong, but once you and your opponent both hit Grade 3 and they have enough cards to guard in the hand, this deck is not going to be as devastating as the Harry deck, because Harry has the Story Pop Dragon, which restricts Sentinels and hits for pretty big numbers, which this deck can't do as well. This deck hits pretty good numbers in all your columns, but it doesn't really have a really big punch like what Night Rose can do and what Story Pop Dragon can do. So that's kind of where it falls short. Yeah, not having guard restrict not having guard restrict kind of hurts the deck a bit. But I don't really know what they could give a guard restrict to, so I guess that's fine. And then the last thing I want to talk about is the amount of attacks you can do. So this deck, you can have a lot of XL markers on the field. So if you ride, you get your first XL marker. And then at the end of the first ride, you get your second XL marker, so that's 2 XL markers already. So that's 5 attacks. And then only on your second ride, you'll be able to get a third XL marker, which will give you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 attacks, which then will be more attacks than Night Rose. But before that, on your first ride, you'll only be doing 4 attacks, which is less than Night Rose. Second turn, if you do ride, second turn if you don't re-ride, you'll have 5 attacks, which is the same as Night Rose. And then if you do ride, you'll have 6 attacks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, 6 attacks, which will be more than some of the other protect count kinds do now. So that's one of the main problems. You might say, oh, but Harry only has 4 attacks or 5 attacks. But Harry's attacks kind of pack more punch, and there is a guard restrict, so that kind of has the advantage there. The advantage Luquier has is that you can go off a bit earlier than Harry, so it kind of depends on how you want to play, but overall Harry does seem like a better deck overall. This deck, even though you can potentially have a lot of multi-attacks, it does rely on you to keep reriding and living long enough that you can do it. So yeah, it kind of relies on that. So a lot of times when I am playing this deck, I like to rush my opponent as fast as possible. So then on the turn that I do ride Grade 3, I'll be able to swing for pretty decent numbers with my units and my Luquier skill, so that I can call units out without coming too many cards in my hand. But that's pretty much it for this deck, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know if you have any questions, and you can let me know back down below. But for the most part, this deck is really fun. And it is kind of expensive though, I think. Because if you are picking up the old Silver Thorn stuff, it might cost a bit. If you have your old stuff already, then that's perfectly fine. But anyway, that's pretty much it for this deck profile, guys. I hope you guys I hope you guys stay tuned for more Cardfight Vanguard deck profiles. And I'll see you guys next time. Next time we're doing Harry. Bye!